Good morning, everyone, and happy Friday. Thank you for joining us today. Sure appreciate it. I deeply appreciate our guests, Lucie Lynch and Marcia. You need to pronounce your last name for me. Major?
Very good, Marcia Zina Major.
Major. Okay, Marcia Major are joining us today. We are in webinar format, so please introduce yourself on the chat. Next week, we're going to be doing a networking session, so we'll have a chance to interact more. To start, let me go ahead and describe Purse Power. Purse Power is working to help women use their massive purchasing power to drive positive change. We believe that if women, who make 80% of all purchasing decisions, would choose to buy from the companies that actively promote women, and we would do it in mass, and we could create a funding stream for battered women's shelters in the process, that we could shatter glass ceilings and change lives. So the reason why we're doing the call is we want to connect you with each other. We started doing these calls when coronavirus hit, and we want to connect you with each other, connect you with national speakers, and support you in every possible way we can. I want to do a couple of shout outs quickly to our special guests. If I've got any board members or shareholders online, thank you for being here. Sure appreciate it. Okay, so Lucie Lynch and Marcia Major are here today, and it's 5 a.m. their time. Thank you so much for being here this early. We appreciate it. You guys share your comments during chat, and if you have any questions, capture them as we go, and we'll give you some time to ask the questions on the Q&A link a little later. All right, so let me go ahead and do a quick introduction. Lucie Lynch and Marcia Major are the CEOs of Love, Love, Money, Money, LLC, a Hawaii-based entertainment company, edutainment company. They're also the playwrights, composers, lyricists, and performers of Money Talks, But What the Hell Is It Saying? What a great title. It's an award-winning two-women musical about self-worth that's been applauded as a TED Talk meets Broadway musical. They've published 2 books, and they're very inspired by the transformative message of the books, and I believe it, and the show. Lucie's a 43-year-old singer-songwriter from Germany with an international following whose music has touched thousands of lives. Marcia is a 66-year-old international best-selling author and poet whose work has been translated into many languages. I'm thrilled to have them here. I think this is going to be a fun show, and so let's go ahead and get started. All right, my first question, although Money Talks tells your life stories, obviously this audience hasn't seen it yet. So could you please briefly share how you arrived at this place in your lives and careers?
All righty.
Well, take it away, Lucie.
Okay, first of all, good morning, everybody. Slowly waking up. I didn't have time to make coffee yet, but here we are, as usual, doing all we can for the arts and life and humanity, right? Yeah, Lucie Lynch from Germany originally. And back in the days in Germany, I wanted to become a musical star. That's basically what I wanted to do after I finished high school. And in the process of doing that, I started studying acting. And throughout that time, my mother gave me a book, and it was a book about fairies and nature spirits and how to connect with them. And what I started integrating that in my acting work, I started dressing up as a fairy, dancing through the streets of Hamburg City and singing to people, making up poetry on the spot. And it really shifted my life. And throughout that time, I had a dream where I flew around the head of the Statue of Liberty, and it said, "Lucie, it's time that you come home." And it was really interesting because I know that most, everybody else would have probably just said, okay, it was just a dream, keep moving on. And it didn't let me go. So, sure enough, a month later, I find myself in New York City and was just blown away by everything here. And I knew I have to leave Germany behind. And it was a little bit of a process. I left Germany behind, moved to Hawaii. And then I think already a year after I just moved to Hawaii, a friend of mine says, you have to meet this woman. Her name is Marcia. And she's something and you are something, and together you could be something. So you got to meet. And then we set up a blind date. Marcia, you take it from here.
Okay, so now here's my end of the story. So I moved to Hawaii from Manhattan in 96 or something like that. And anyway, when I got to Hawaii, a very unusual thing happened, and you can kind of tell from the way that I'm talking. I was a hardcore New Yorker. I'm a very grounded person, but a very unusual, strange thing happened to me. I was riding my bicycle one day in a neighborhood in Oahu, Hawaii, and all of a sudden this big red hibiscus bush, these giant red beautiful flowers, shouted at me. And I stopped my bicycle, I got off. I always carry a journal with me because I've been a writer since the late 70s. And I sat down and I wrote down everything I heard. And that began about a 2 to 3 week, what I like to describe as a window into another dimension where nature spoke to me. And at the end of 3 weeks, I had a manuscript that I didn't know what the heck to do with. And I didn't do anything with it initially. And I waited about 7 years, got pregnant at 43. And that was when I decided to send the manuscript to a British publisher. And he fell in love with it and he published it. And the book became an international bestseller in Germany, Switzerland, and Austria. And the title of the book was and is Believing in Fairies, a Manual for Grown-Ups. It was all about nature spirits. And so when I showed up at our blind date, Lucie and I had met through this friend on the phone. And I was very excited to be meeting a woman from Germany because my book had been translated into German and it was a beautiful German edition. And I wanted to show it off to this German lady that I was meeting. And so I showed up at this cafe and I sat down and I said, hey, Lucie, by the way, I'm a writer and look, this is my book. And Lucie almost fainted because
it was the book that my mother had given me, 15 years prior to that moment. And it was quite profound,
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
One of those moments where it's like the sky opens and the lights come down, like, yeah, happening.
So, it was very clear from that moment going forward that we were destined to do something together. I mean, she could have been my daughter. I mean, we're 23 years different, but we're both artists. We're both living in Hawaii. And really to sum it all up and make a long story short, in addition to having so much in common, being artists and creative women, the other thing we had in common, which was not so much fun, was our struggle with finances and money and struggling with Hawaii's high cost of living and never making enough and all that kind of stuff. And so we decided to channel our financial woes and our financial demons from childhood into a creative project. And so, to make a very long story short, we ended up writing a 2-woman show about our struggles with money, and it's called Money Talks, but what the hell is it saying?
Fantastic. You guys are amazing. I mean, that's the most, serendipitous meeting I've ever heard about.
Me too. Serendipitous.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
So I want to add one more thing, Donna.
Yeah.
And maybe you want to speak to this about because the audience has not seen the show. Maybe you want to speak to Lucie about the impact the show has had on us as a platform for us of like the show itself was a teacher for us.
Yeah, what was really interesting, Donna, we thought in the beginning that it was just a show about money and humanity. You're kind of just analyzing a little bit, sharing a little bit. And then what really started happening is that we realized we are in the middle of a workshop, like a life workshop, like a never ending, self-improvement, self-help kind of workshop. And then, maybe even only 2 years or something, about 2 years after we already performed it, we realized, oh my God, it's really not a show about money. It's actually a show about self-worth. And that was really a big turning point for us. It shifted a lot. It shifted the way we saw different audiences. We realized that's why everyone relates to it. That's why we get the reactions we get, because everyone is, struggling with that topic of, am I worthy? Am I inherently valuable? Who am I? All of those questions that we are asking in the show. So profound. And it's still, to this day, I believe it is a workshop, a living workshop.
Fantastic. I mean, I know that's something that all of us struggle with. Women in particular struggle with it on a daily basis, no matter what they're doing. Okay. All right, so it does. So it encourages us to look at how we define our self-worth. And in this time of COVID in particular, I think this is really important and apropos. So can you talk to that, please?
I would say, especially in this time where we feel like, the carpet is pulled beneath our feet, and I think everyone experiences that in their own way. I think in a way it's almost independent of money or finances, because there is something that the old way we were living, the old way we were seeing the world, everything that we were so familiar with, that we could trust, that we just took for granted, is kind of pulled away. And so I feel to really reconnect, go within, go to that inside, and really come to that place or touch that place, even only to be like, wow, even if the world changes completely, even I have no control over this right now. If the storms are raging, the fires are raging, like a virus is raging, everything is chaos. Am I willing, able to surrender to that place in me that has not changed, and that is not defined by that, and that is just is connected to the source of life, right? I mean, to say it very dramatically. And I feel like that's why for me it's very, very, very timely to look at these questions, to ask us those questions while the world and the systems that we know are falling apart because they want to be built anew.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's interesting because when I first watched the play, we were talking about having an answer, and it's not about having an answer right now. It's about asking the right questions and really getting in touch with who you are at your core, right?
Exactly.
And I would add also to what Lucie is saying is that this pandemic, this global pandemic, on one level, has really forced us to, it's sort of a forced spiritual retreat. It's forced us to stop and to really take a look at our lives. And, our show really raises questions about identity. And COVID has really forced us, so many of us, to take a look at who am I, without my job, without having to run to work. Who am I when everything changes, when, money stops. And I mean, these are profound questions. These are questions sometimes people don't even face until they're on their deathbed. There are stories about being on the deathbed and people looking back and saying, why was I so wrapped up in money? Why did I work so hard? Why didn't I just love my kids more? Why didn't I just paint more and write more and find more joy? I mean, this pandemic has forced so many of us to really question our identity. And like Lucie said, in the end, and like you said, Donna, our show is not offering solutions. Our show were the questions that we were struggling with, the questions that we still struggle with, saying, who am I without my bank account, without all these things that define me? Is there something that never changes? Is there something that is eternal? And that is the greatest spiritual question that anybody could ponder.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the show being the workshop that it is, what's so beautiful about it is, for me at least, and it's my experience in life, is when I ask questions, I live slowly into the answers. And I really believe that Marcia and I have asked these questions. And for me, these last 5 months have really, my whole life has changed. And I think I lived a lot into the answers. I really lived into the answers slowly of our show. Have I found them all? No. And it's not about answering it with the head. It's like living it. It's like embodying that, starting to embody that word, embody that what I perceive myself as. And so, things are actually shifting and changing, which is beautiful. It's a beautiful experience. And I really am grateful for this show because it has helped so much.
Yeah. Fantastic. Fantastic. All right. I found the song about cheering for everyone else's dream to be a really interesting one. I think that the entrepreneurs online are living their dreams. That's what they're trying to do. But it can be lonely to be a female entrepreneur, and many women don't feel supported by other women in their lives. Why is that? And what do we do to change it?
I think it's a very interesting question for me, because for me, I work a lot with women as well. So do Marcia and I. We have when we have groups, or when we went, for example, into the women's prison, or the here locally in Honolulu, we worked with the YWCA and their different programs. And I have a feeling, just that there's such a deep, almost like a wounding from like old days. I only remember that as a child, that I rather played with boys than with girls. And there was just something that there was like a competitive element between women that I just could never really handle. And a lot of like gossiping, talking behind each other's backs. And it was just something I could never really relate so much. So I rather jumped up and down trees with my boys, right? But then now I see that we are really craving this sisterhood secretly.
Yes.
Craving it so much. And maybe it was, from the society, we've been kind of also pushed into that way, right? Like women have to kind of just like be pretty, make a good impression, be a good girl, all of those beautiful things, right? So, and now I think I see it changing everywhere. I'm looking at it in a way when we women can really own our femininity, and we don't have to, if it's like women in business, we have to go into the masculine. But if we can really own that feminine aspect, maybe then we can also meet again as women. I feel almost sometimes we women had an identity crisis over the last, decades. And then it's also hard to relate to each other and be with each other. And we're definitely cheering everybody else on, children, husband, family, right? But not so much each other. That's what I realized, and that is about to change. And I think we can change it by bringing groups together and even voicing it, Donna. I think you are already making that, just voicing it, talking about it, because a lot of times we're sitting there thinking, am I the only one like feeling this way? No, a lot of women feel this way. And that's why I think this is powerful, to have these conversations.
Yeah. Well, and I think if people have stronger self-esteem, to your point about self-worth, I think that they behave differently, maybe. What do you think, Marcia?
Yeah, that's the point that I was gonna speak to, is that, this loneliness and this ultimately feeling unloved, I think this is part of the human condition. So I don't think it's just women. I understand we're talking about women, but I think the human condition is such that everyone is suffering ultimately from this feeling of not being loved enough. And I think, and again, it's who I am. I bring it back to a spiritual question of it. I really think it comes down to that each of us ultimately feel separated, cut off from our essential nature. We feel, we're in a world now, we can see it from an environmental point of view. We feel cut off from nature, from the environment. We feel cut off from each other. And I think ultimately the source of that solution or that answer is who am I? Where this love that I'm craving, where does it ultimately come from? Yes, we want it from other women. We want it from our communities. That's all very real. But ultimately, like Lucie said, and like you just said, are we not giving it to ourselves? I think there's a way that we don't really honor ourselves. We don't love ourselves. We dismiss our feelings. We even reject and abandon the part of us that wants to be loved. Oh, that's just, get out of my way. I got stuff to do. This, and that sort of inner child, that wounded inner child really needs attention needs to be honored and acknowledged, because I think there's a doorway there into a deeper sense of connection and love. And I think if we can lean into that and work with that, everything would change. Again, it doesn't mean we don't reach out and ask for help. It doesn't mean that we don't have sister circles and things like that. But something opens up when we're willing to love ourselves and we're willing to be connected to the deepest part of ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. The invisibility, I think, so many of us feel invisible. That's what the song is called. And it's almost like we're all running and rushing around, competing for the love of God, the universe, Jesus, Allah, Jehovah, you can name it, right? It's that we're looking for that love outside so much. We are running, and then it's this. That's what for me this time has brought, is being cut off. Me being a very social creature, always out there, always surrounded by people, being then by myself, being at the house and really looking at that, taking that time, like Marcia said, making friends again with that inner child that wants to be just loved, and that's a way, once you also see that and understand that, I think we can only then have a greater compassion for everybody else as well. Because if we really see that and in everyone, then all of us are just searching for that love. And it doesn't matter if you're throwing a tantrum, if you're really angry, or even if you're super excited, joyful, super expressive, like narcissist, it doesn't matter. We're all, like Marcia said, looking for that love, inside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I also would just add one other thing, especially because you said your audience are powerful women that are entrepreneurs and really trying to live their dream. I mean, so where does the imposter syndrome come from, right? I mean, we've all read about that, whether you're a high-level woman executive or a male CEO. I mean, everybody sort of suffers from this. It's always sort of shocking. I remember in my life, once meeting, I was at a party, oh my God, this was decades ago in New York City, with a writer, because, here I was a writer. And I think this guy had just won an Academy Award, right? Like sort of the ultimate. And he was confessing how scared he was of, could he do it again? And maybe he's really not good enough. And my God, we all suffer from that. And if you really trace that back, what is that? I mean, it's just all of us saying, am I good enough? Can I still be lovable? I mean, so like Lucie said, I mean, if we can get in touch with that in ourselves, it unleashes compassion. And I think that compassion is a self-compassion. And then once you have self-compassion, it spills out. And then you connect more to the women around you. And then all of a sudden something reverses, and maybe you're feeling more supported because you're supporting yourself. And I think that's where it really begins. Genuine support for yourself and your own wounded insecurities.
Yeah, and only then, I really deeply believe, can we let go of this me, hoarding, collecting, more money, more houses, more stuff, right? Like that's one of my favorite parts in the show, like a monologue where I'm rushing back and forth, describing what we are doing as humanity. And I think only when we get to that point that Marcia just so beautifully described, that then only from that point we can even start thinking about a different society, thinking about a different approach, in the world. Yeah.
You guys, this is amazing. I mean, the root of this, if we were able to be more compassionate with ourselves and therefore more compassionate with each other, especially during this time when there's so much chaos in our world, is super, super important. That's a really good point. All right, so lots of people are suffering right now. They've lost jobs, they've lost loved ones due to the pandemic. We all have to have money to survive. Although it's useful to recognize that our inherent self-worth and value is not about the money we make, the quality of our lives obviously is really dependent on it. How do you reconcile the uplifting ideas behind Money Talks with some of the things that are happening right now in our world?
Marcia, do you want to start? Do you want me to?
Let me give you a tough question.
Yeah, it was a wonderful question. I really wanted to, thank you. Like, I appreciated this question a lot. I really immediately, I was like, whoops. I could feel like there was a moment in me when I felt a little triggered even, I was like, oh my God, how am I answering that, right? And I think, you know, for me, what it immediately triggered this question was this idea of, it's so interesting the way we, what we think in life, we all just bought into this idea of we need money, we need to make money, and we all agreed on it, and that's that, but we are so focused on it that it almost dominates us, right? Like, and it's yeah, it becomes almost 90% of our thoughts is how can I make money, how do I get my next client, how do I land the next gig, all of that, right? But when we allow ourselves again within this time, just for a moment, even if you allow yourself for a moment a day to pull back and be like, but like the things that really make me alive, that doesn't really cost something right now. Like to breathe, for example, very lucky. So far doesn't cost anything, right? Most of us, not all of us, but most of us have access to water, right? We have water that we can drink. Like we can go outside in the garden, we can go sit by a tree. And really what is actually very nurturing for us, those things are free. And I think to remember that those are our charging stations and we just don't use them anymore. We think we charge ourselves by going to the movies, by having a glass of wine, by meeting friends in a bar. But we usually get even more tired with it and we get more exhausted. But every one of us, I think, knows, even if you only go on vacation once a year somewhere, right? And then you sit barefoot on that beach with your feet in the water, or you go barefoot into the forest. Don't even have to be barefoot, but you know what I mean, right? That feeling of you connect with nature, that moment. And if you give yourself that gift to connect to that, I think that's when that creativity can come in again also. Maybe then it could even be tackled. Maybe there is a different way for me to make money. But that's almost already advanced, right? But that idea of first, give yourself a moment. Give yourself a moment. Because the thing is, if you don't make money today, do you want to worry all day today? Or do you say, okay, today nothing is coming in, I might as well go to nature and ask, how can I change? What can I change? Show me, to reconnect to that nature spirit, I would say. That is one way to tackle the answer a little bit, but I think Marcia has also something to say to that.
Okay.
Yeah, I also appreciated the answer. It was a very powerful question, Donna, to ask us. And so you're asking, how do we reconcile this, wonderful, entertaining show with the difficult reality, especially what's going on now during the pandemic. And when we talked about this, when we all met, I'll repeat what I said then. We're not offering solutions in Money Talks. It's really important to understand that.
Yeah.
Money Talks, what the hell is it saying? The second part of that title is a question. And our show is about questions. Because questions are really powerful. Lucie used the phrase, live into the answer. That's actually from a great German poet named Rainer Maria Rilke. And he said that I forgot the entire quote. He said, but you can't just answer, you can't just search for answers. You have to live the question. You have to live into the answer. And so, how do you reconcile our need for money? Once again, my deep belief is that you have to be willing to ask the right questions, to ponder the deepest truths, because when you really awaken and realize in your body who you are and what is really important, like what Lucie's talking about, something happens. There's an opening that then is reflected in your world. Answers flow, things change. you can even say sometimes miracles happen, but it begins with the discovery of sort of the deepest truth. So we're not in any way saying you don't need money. Of course you need money, and we have to eat and we have to house ourselves. So we're not trying to. That's a you can't give the audience that, but what we can offer the audience is the questions we struggled with, and we can offer them a nudge in the direction of what might be a realization or awakening, and out of that realization and awakening, incredible things happen. The world and the universe, whether you believe in God, whether you believe in life, whether you believe in nature, is so amazing when you open yourself to it, and answers are there. How they're going to show up for you, we have no idea, but go in that direction.
Yeah.
And I think that blindly running and rushing after money without even really knowing, I really lean myself a little bit out of the window here, but I really see that a lot of people don't even know why they want that money. It's just because you want money. That's what it is. You need it. You want it. That's why I do business. That's why. And then to really, to take that moment also and be like, so what do I really actually want it for? To spend time with my family, to go on vacation, to have freedom, to whatever, to buy myself a house, or to give more back to the world. Like, to even start asking yourself those questions. And then it's funny, at least for me, that takes away a lot of pressure, because a lot of the answers why I actually, for example, think I want more money, I have most of those things. So, a lot of those things I actually have without paying for it, and so it's that thing. You could just always be like, just start asking questions. I think that's really what it is. We are running around for answers, but when we ask questions, when we let a question rise from within, then also the answers can start rising from within, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very important. Well, and I loved a quote you had about hunting for a diamond necklace that's already around our neck as a part of the play. How can we be more grateful for what we have rather than being anxious about what we lack? And how do you manage your own negative thoughts and fears?
Well, I want to jump in and say that quote in its entirety.
Please.
So that's a quote from Rumi, who's a 13th century mystical Sufi poet and a great spiritual teacher. And the quote is, "You wander from room to room, hunting for the diamond necklace that's already around your neck." And that's delivered in the show. And to me, that's the essence of our show. And I've said this so many times before, if the only thing an audience member takes away from our show is pondering that Rumi quote, then I feel Money Talks has been really successful. And so then the question becomes, what does he mean? The diamond necklace is already around my neck, and that's such a beautiful thing to ponder. And your questions on it is, boy, the practice of gratitude. I mean, we have a whole section in the show about abundance, because that's ultimately what we had to become aware of in the writing of the show and in the performing of the show over and over and over again. Where am I abundant now? What do I have now? I mean, and I literally had this realization where one day I walked into the meadow walking my dog, and I was feeling really down because I was struggling paying my mortgage and all the bills at the end of the month. And, I was feeling like that life sucks. I just never have enough. And something happened to me, and I noticed I was walking in sort of a wooded area, and I noticed, my God, there's hundreds of leaves on the trees and thousands of blades of grass and millions of stars in the sky and trillions of cells in my body. I mean, I have so much. And so I think the practice of gratitude and the practice of really feeling abundant now, that's one way that I work with my own demons and my own negativity. Because our critical voices and our negativity is trying to convince us that we have nothing. Whatever we have, it's not good enough, and you're not good enough, and only if you have this, then that one has it, and you don't have it, and I mean, so when the practice of, we all read about this. There's so many books about this and workshops about this, but it's such a powerful practice of gratitude and abundance. They've even done studies that when you're witnessing a compassionate act, it boosts your immune system. It's the same thing with gratitude. I mean, I'm sure really looking around, like Lucie was saying, those of us in the world today that are not in the hospital, that are, that we have we have food, we have shelter. My God, we have so much. And I think practicing gratitude, taking it as a spiritual practice is incredibly powerful.
I think practice is such a powerful word in that, it's like a yoga practice. It's you keep going and keep doing it like on a daily basis and several times a day, And what has, for me personally, when you ask that question, manage those thoughts and fears, because I've been someone who struggled a lot with fears, like about 10, 15 years ago, like with anxiety, panic attacks even. And what helped me, or what's always important is for me, is the embodiment. Like I can only say for me, this year is literally the year of embodiment, because for me, it's this move that body, my friends. Life is not between the ears and behind the eyes. That's not where it is. And that's also not where gratitude alone lives, right? So if we only think gratitude, most of us, that's also a lot of us try to, I'm grateful for what I have. I'm so grateful. I'm valuable. I'm worthy. I love myself. I'm beautiful. I'm powerful. But it's happening here and it's not in the body. And what really for me over the last 5 months, because of what has happened in the world, I got so addicted to walking my dog. My dog must think I'm absolutely crazy, but I walked about 3 times a day throughout this pandemic, right? Just to walk. And then I included a practice that in the mornings now, since 5 months, rain or shine, I put on music and I dance. And I dance to music that has uplifting lyrics that I really like. But sometimes I also, when I don't feel it, I put on like a Rage Against the Machine song and I just shake it out and I can tell you it has literally shifted something in me. Something is different. That's how I really work with it. And it's every day. It's not like, oh, I do it once in a workshop and then I don't do it anymore and I'm fixed. Or, I say one gratitude in the morning. Sometimes I have to stop myself 5 times a day, do it again or put a song on again and be like, okay, I'm in the head again. I'm just in that head. And the way our body screams for our attention is with pain, right? So then we get some pain. So the body's like, hey, I'm also still here, Give me water. I need some nutritious food, And so to really, again, that our health, without our health, nothing.
Where are we? Yeah.
Without and for me, health also means that mindset, right?
Yeah, it sure does. Yeah. Guys, I want you to start asking questions if you wouldn't mind. Go ahead, Marcia.
No, I was just going to add to what Lucie said, which is that, again, to remember that emotions and feelings are not here. They're in the body, which is why it's so important to be willing to go into the body and feel and connect with that wounded part of ourselves, the part of us that needs it, because you can't talk yourself out of it. I mean, if you're feeling down or depressed or angry, in the end, it's an emotion in your body, and so your body has to be part of it. You have to be willing to feel, and you have to be willing to feel compassion for yourself, because most of us, and I'll just repeat it, especially powerful women that are, doers, and, there's a tendency to, I don't have time for that. It becomes that very male, like, I don't have time to feel. I got stuff to do. You have to take, and that's again what the pandemic has just thrown us all into. Wow, I have time, and that might be very uncomfortable because when you have time and you have space and there's more quiet, the feelings come up, and then you might want to run on that. So I'm just underscoring with an exclamation point what Lucie is saying. You have to be willing to go into the body.
Yeah.
That's
I see some questions there already popping up in the comments. Is the show available online?
Okay, guys, for some reason it's not showing up on my screen, so I'm sorry. You may need to read them because I can't see them. There we go. Okay.
So you got them?
Yeah, so now I do. So is the musical? Go ahead and talk about it. And if you want to talk about what we're going to be doing, that'd be great.
Yeah, so we're super, super excited. We are, so that was one of the things a blessing the pandemic brought, is that Marcia and I had done a very beautiful recording of the show a couple of years ago. And, we didn't really know why. I think we just thought we were going to have that as a memory, so we have it. And when this started, we were like, wow, maybe we could do something virtually with the video, with the show. And then we created a local here in Hawaii, a fundraising program for a theater that basically asked their fans and supporters for donations. And in exchange, they were able to see the show. And it was so successful that we then thought, why not, look if somebody else is interested. And then we found you, Donna, and through our beautiful friend, Sandra Moland. And we, now we're about to launch a virtual tour together.
Exactly. So guys, just for reference, we're going to have a meeting on September 18th, and it's going to be a 2-hour meeting. And what we're going to actually do is show your play. And we'll have you guys facilitate a conversation in the middle of it. So, and Sandra just put up the link. If you guys want to buy tickets to the event, you can click there. And I think it's going to be a tremendous, tremendous experience with a lot of great conversation. Go ahead.
And just to let the audience know, so our show is a 90-minute 2-act show, sort of just a standard time frame. And we really hope that you'll come for this 2-hour live event, and we'll be there, and you'll be able to watch Act 1. You'll be able to watch Act 2. We'll probably have some sort of discussion maybe during intermission, and then certainly a Q&A afterwards. And we would be just delighted to be able to witness you watching the show, and then be able to respond to any questions or comments you have after you see the show.
Perfect. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. And by the way, guys, we're looking at doing this on a national basis. So we are looking for a national partner. If you know of someone who might have an interest in this, again, it's about money and it's about self-worth. And we really want to get the word out there. And we are going to be creating a donation stream also for battered women's shelters out of this project. So just hang with us, and I hope you can attend on the 18th. Other questions? So let's see. I see an awesome. What other questions do you have? Either you can put them in the Q&A box or put them in the chat box. So I'll ask one too. I mean, after this, guys, please put your questions up and I'll ask them in the interim. So what's next for you guys?
Yeah.
Well, it's so funny. One of the things we didn't say, you'll see it in the show, is Money Talks, What the Hell's It Saying, was actually the second version of our Lucie and I working together. When we first met and we saw we were destined to do something together, we began by first attempting to write a Broadway musical about money, and that Broadway musical about money, which didn't include us. We were making characters up, and it was all make-believe. That's what morphed into Money Talks, What the Hell's It Saying? But, we've always had this dream of going to Broadway. And I think it's something that we've had to let go of, and then it comes back. And so, I don't want to say that our goal is to go to Broadway, because we see that the show has its own identity and it wants to go wherever it wants to go. And we've done the show for women's prison. We've done the show for drug rehabs and churches and synagogues. And so all sorts of audiences. And it might very well be that that's really the audience, that it's not Broadway. But I think Lucie and I would not be unhappy, right, Lucie, if we were invited in the next couple of years to at least do, a couple weeks in a Broadway theater, or at the very least in a theater in New York, or at the very least in a church on Broadway in New York. We really would love to do money talks in New York City. I think it would be the period at the end of our sentence. Don't you think, Lucy?
Absolutely, and I absolutely like 10 exclamation marks here, and because I'm holding that vision, I see, Marcia and I hand in hand running down Broadway, because that was what I did by myself after reading her book, and it would be so wonderful to literally, and that would also be another dream that we're having is, have like a mini documentary about this whole thing, and that would be for me in the documentary. That would be the last scene where we're some sort of like hand in hand, the tall blonde German and the short quirky Jew. We are running into the sunset on Broadway. And, and our music is playing. And speaking of that, one of the things, like now a little bit more here, grounded, joke to the side, the comedian to the side. One dream that I really have is I would love for our music to really go back into the studio, to really record it, maybe here locally with someone really very, very talented that we have already in mind, and to really kind of, give this music also the quality that it deserves.
That it deserves, you bet. Okay, guys, and just for reference, there was a question about the time on the 18th, so it's going to be 10 a.m. to 12 noon Central Time. And we will go ahead and show the trailer at the end. We'll figure out, so save 2 minutes and we'll do that.
Yeah, I was also going to add, like as Lucy said, aside from the little Broadway thing in terms of what are we doing, we also, out of the show, because it had so much meaning for us and because of the impact of the audiences, like you said, we wrote 2 books, and also we started doing keynotes and presentations and workshops, because what's so wonderful about the show is it raises so many questions and has so many different themes that we also really enjoy working with groups. We enjoy working with small groups, large groups. When we give keynotes or talks, it always has some of the songs in it, so we do some live performing, so they're really wonderful presentations, because it's not just the 2 of us speaking. We do little moments from the show. And so we really enjoy taking the show's messages into different settings, whether they're corporate settings, or we've done it for schools, we've done it for women's groups. We love doing that. And we're available to do that now online. You don't have to get on airplanes anymore. So that's something that Lucy and I really also enjoy doing.
Yeah, very good, very good. Okay, so the trailer, as everybody can see, is in the chat box. And what I'd like to do is, why don't we go through the program, if you don't mind, then we could play it at the very end. Is that all right?
Perfect.
Okay. Other questions that you guys have, either in the Q&A box or in the chat box? Give it 2 seconds. All right, I want to ask, while we're waiting for those, what are the top things you want us to have learned from you today?
Well, I'll jump in. So I'll say that if we in any way inspired or gently nudged you to look a little bit more deeper within, to really consider really having compassion for your own flaws, your own insecurities, your own imperfections, if we awakened anything about that, I would feel, man, that that's a really wonderful takeaway as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think everything that Marcia said, like the inspiration, and maybe just really that little reminder of, love yourself every day a little bit more, and if you don't know how, then ask, how can I love, and it almost makes me cry, because that has been something that I've been really practicing, is asking that every day. How can I love myself a little bit more today? How can I show up a little bit more for myself and for the world today? Or just, how can I be a little bit more of myself today? How can I reveal, like literally, start asking those questions. If we inspired you to ask yourself empowering questions, I think we've done a good job, right, Marcia?
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, remember, we all wander from room to room hunting for the diamond necklace. Let's become aware of how much we're hunting, and let's take a moment to sit under a tree, to sit next to a plant, to look at a sunset, and consider what Rumi is asking us to consider, that we already have the diamond.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. All right. Let's see here. Other questions, guys? I want to give you a chance to ask. So just for reference, the link on the trailer, I will send that out afterwards. So people are having a tough time seeing it. And I'm having a tough time typing things in chat. So I don't know what's going on there, but we'll get the link out. No problem. And have it on the 18th. All right. Last thing here is, what can we do to help support your efforts? Because this is really an important message. I mean, we're going to try to help you by getting it out. Other things we can do.
Well, if there's anybody who's incredibly wealthy out there and has a couple of extra 100,000 or million, we will happily accept a check.
And we will use it very, consciously, wisely. Like, another thing is really, if you have a women's group, for example, if you are out there, have a women's circle, we would love to come and, sing, speak, create a space. That's what Marcia and I are really gifted with, is, creating a space where people can feel things, feel themselves, feel life, maybe even feel worthy to a degree, to really, we're inviting everyone to come with us on that journey of what's my worth. And write us a check, send us flowers.
We'll take any or all of the above. Yep.
And also, we'd love you to read our books. We have 2 books. The second book we wrote, which is called Money Talks, What the Hell Is It Saying? 6.5 golden rules to making friends with success, failure, and self-worth. That's a lovely book where it chronicles the first 2 years of our journey with the show, but it's a book where we really share the lessons that we keep learning, that this whole show has brought us, and it's a very inspiring book. So please feel free to get it and share the book. I think that's about it.
Okay, Sandra, do you guys have, what's going to be happening with the book and the showing that we're doing on the 18th? Do you guys know? And maybe we'll just tell everybody if Sandra, either you can write a note in the chat, or we can talk later and I'll get it out to everybody.
Did we, Marcia, we included one of the books, right?
Yeah. Well, I think for the showing on the 18th, if you purchase a ticket to watch the show with us on the 18th, you'll get an ebook copy of our first book, which is called What's My Worth? Discovering the Priceless Treasure of You, which was actually a small gift book that we created for the Oahu Women's Prison. When we brought the show to the Oahu Women's Prison, there's 300 women inmates. We wanted to do something more than give them a performance. And so we wrote a book, and then we did a fundraiser called One Book, One Woman, and we raised enough money to print 300 books and give the prison 300 of the books, What's My Worth? And so if you buy a ticket for September 18th, you'll get the ebook version of that.
Outstanding. Okay, and Sandra's putting it all in the chat, guys, in terms of what's going to happen. All right. Deshawn, I want you to get ready to play the trailer, and then do you have anything else you want to add? And then I'd like to close up the show, and then we'll show your trailer. So anything else you want to say?
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you. Exactly.
Of course.
For having us, and thank you for everyone who is here, out here participating, or even watching the replay, for taking the time. I know that time is very valuable, especially in these days where so much is offered. So if you took the time to receive our message, thank you. And I hope that you will enjoy this musical as much as we do, and that it can bring value to your life.
Yes, it's very important. It's going to be great. Here, let's see here. Victoria's saying, I can present this to the Commission on the Status of Women. Very nice. So she's on the Oklahoma Commission on the Status of Women. That'd be awesome. Okay. All right. Okay, so thank you so much, guys, and for getting up at 5 a.m., less than 5 at 4:30. So thank you for Lucie and Marcia and all the attendees and special guests. I want to let you know what's coming up. So next Friday, we're going to have just a pure networking meeting, guys. So it'll be a meeting. We want to give you guys a chance to connect with each other, network, etc. That's what that's going to be. On September 11th, we have Deepa Sarajamal. She's the CEO of Reflections, which is one of the largest technology companies in India. And then on September 18th, we'll have Money Talks. And what the hell is it saying? And we'll have both watch the Broadway show and have the discussion. You're going to register through Eventbrite, and you see the link in the chat. Again, I'll get this out to everybody. Beyond that, I would ask that everybody sign up for a directory listing if your company has either a female CEO or president, or it's half owned by women, or you have at least 20% women on the board. We want you in our directory, and you can have a free listing. Please download our Google Chrome extension from our website. It's where the arrow is pointing to our apps. You can download it from there. And as you shop on Google, it will show you which companies are in our directory. Our logo appears next to them so that you can choose to buy from women-owned and women-led companies. Please do choose to buy from women-owned and women-led companies. And we would love it if you would like and share our media pages, social media pages. Please let your friends know about this broadcast. We do it every Friday at 10 Central. And anything else we got to say here? I see the wonderful. All right, so just remember, everybody, purse power, we have it, let's use it. Deshaun, would you please go ahead and play the trailer? And thank you, everybody.
What's my word? What's my word? Am I given it at birth? What's my word? What's my word?
We met here in Hawaii under extraordinary circumstances. It began with a book I wrote that became an international bestseller in Germany, Switzerland, and Austria.
And back in Germany, my mother gave me exactly the same book, and it changed my life.
Warren Buffett and Billy Gates, they ain't perfect, they make mistakes. So the question burns as each life turns. Is our blood the same without the fancy name? Is the crazy woman on the cardboard floor worth less because she won't do more? And the janitor making minimum wage, hoping and praying to get a raise?
You know, our show Money Talks really became a platform for us to channel and explore our fears and beliefs about money.
And every time we perform the show, we have to look more closely, not only at our relationship with money, but at the deeper issue of self-worth.
What's my word? What's my word?
We've performed this show not only for theater crowds, but for an entire women's prison, recovering drug addicts, church and synagogue congregations, even corporations.
I mean, the show really seems to have a universal message. Everybody seems to really love it and get something out of it. The reactions of the audience are almost overwhelming.
Yes.
It's amazing.
What's my word?
You know, in times like these, with so much fear and uncertainty, we really want to empower and inspire as many people as we can.
Look, we're on a mission. This show has changed our lives, and our deepest hope is that somehow it can change the world, one song at a time.
Outstanding.
Falling apart over here.
Yeah, I saw that. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. You're making a difference in this world.
Thank you, Donna, so much.
Oh.
All
I
right.
love you, Lucie.
I love you. What a trip, man. You know, it has been a while, and it's just so moving, you know.
Yeah. Congratulations. All right, we're going to help you get this message out there, all right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Aloha.
Aloha. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.